Welcome back to another edition of the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always, Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, still jet lagged, as I understand it, here 3 or 4 days later. And Soren Petro, that's my name, from Sports Radio 810 WHB. I like this one a lot. I don't know if you guys did. We'll find out if you enjoyed the exercise or not. But we're ranking the needs of the Chiefs by position group, right? Not just for the 2025 season. Anybody can do that. No, we're taking on the Herculean task of looking beyond that, the 2026 season and beyond. Where do they need immediate help? What positions are going to take a hit after 25? The Chiefs do like to draft a year ahead of the need being immediate. So what positions are they going to take the biggest hits after that 25 season? How does position value affect these rankings? Where are the Chiefs looking at a crisis? We're discussing it right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is a columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
All right, thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Let's talk about it, guys. First of all, we do always like to kind of take an aerial view. What did we think of the exercise? Jeff, anything you learned from going through this and taking a look at the Chiefs personnel groups?
Well, I learned I did it wrong. Put up your opening. So I changed some things up in the break there, but you start looking down the road. Yeah, it does change a little bit of what I was looking at in terms of roster movement. But just like all great teams, and I know for fans it's hard to ever understand this, but it's not going to always be this juggernaut of a franchise. Like every year it changes, and in the coming years it's going to change a lot. I mean, they've already obviously changed out one big iteration a couple years ago, and it worked well. They got 2 championships out of it. But moving forward, now you're talking about losing like Hall of Fame level players, and those are big losses. And so it did kind of make me think about, some of the things that this team has done and some of the challenges they're going to face moving forward.
Yeah. How about you, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, similar. I think, this is the view, like we're taking the approach that Brett Veach and his front office is taking, which is like, I'm not just going into the draft thinking, what do I need for 2025, but where am I going to be week after 2025? What do I need to backfill and think about filling now? What's my strength in the draft now? And like, how can I marry those two things together? And that's the enjoyable part about it, is that, this is much more realistic GM than just, hey, let me fill. I don't like my running back this year. I'm going to fill my running back this year. Like, what's our overall thought on the overall roster itself, and how much guys are getting paid? Who are we projecting is going to be gone after this year? It requires you to think about everything and entail everything.
Yeah, the thing that jumped at me is there are 20 guys under contract for 2026, right? And about 3 of those guys are guys that may not even make the roster this year. Okay. And there are 2 or 3 like Felix Anudike-Uzomah where you're like, I'm not sure if he doesn't step up that you would even keep him that final year. Right. So to me, what jumped at me was, I know that they're playing Stars and Jags, right? That's what they've been doing, is they're investing in those players, but it is at an extreme level. I mean, I thought it was a little bit concerning I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I went through it and I was like, I mean, you want to have 1, 2, and then a 8-way tie for 3?
I count 20. I count 26, Soren.
I'm talking about like I don't want to go through
25. I think who were or Driscoll was on the 53-man roster last year, right? So I guess 24 who were on the 53-man because BJ Thompson never was.
I don't have any of the specialists.
Okay, that's the difference then. I'm including Bucker, although that's just Bucker.
That is just Bucker. So that's one place where we're different. But I'm still, and I'd have to look.
It's still a low number. It's still less than half the 53.
Like, I didn't count the guys that have fifth-year options that they're obviously going to pick up. You know, we're in there. But I mean, do you agree that it's amazing how few players are really part of the long-term plan right now?
I think it's like typical, but I do still think that's amazing. I think this
typical for the Chiefs or typical for the NFL?
I think it's typical for the NFL that a lot of teams like have to turn over, because you're looking 2 years down the line, and there'll be other guys that they draft, for example, who will suddenly be on. They'll have 7 extra, or they've got some extra 7th round picks this year, so they'll have 8 extra guys, for example, that will fall into that category if they make the initial 53. When I'm talking about their draft picks, or if you have any undrafted guy, they're going to be under contract, that sort of thing. So those numbers will increase after the draft. But when I say, I think it's amazing yet typical, it's because it speaks to how often that during what's unquestionably a dynasty, you still have to turn it over. Like you still have to replenish and find new talent at, not to give away my list, but at very key positions too, that a lot of times is where these searches fall.
I am counting up here on the Lions, doing it the same way that I did the Chiefs. I count 25, so 27 for the Lions. So I think probably you're right. I think I'd be like, wow, okay, there's fewer there for a lot of them. Listen, I didn't think there was going to be 40 or 45. I mean, I do know that there are a lot of guys that are 1 years, one and dones. But I think for the Chiefs, I think it's a little low. I mean, I think they've gone so far in on some of these big contracts that I think there is a fine line, and I think that
they probably are lower. I mean, now that you say that, they probably are lower than most teams. I don't know if they'd be the lowest, but they probably are lower than more.
And I think what it speaks to is a couple of key injuries can really hurt them, right? If they don't find some premium young talent in different spots quickly, then I think a couple of injuries, like we know, like I think before you could be like, if Patrick Mahomes goes down for 6 games, they can grind their way to 2-4. I don't know that they can. It might be like 0-6 and torpedo their season, which frankly may be the best thing this team needs, because I think a lot of us are going to come to offensive tackle pretty quick on this list. And I think the only way you're going to get that guy is if you have one of those years. Like for the long-term health of this franchise, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for them to have some guys that, for whatever reason that they had a 7-10 season and could get at least in position to make a trade up and solve that problem, right? Like that's one of the things that I look at is like, because I think part of the reason they're thin is drafting the same spot over and over and not solving any problems. Like Wanya Morris or Kingsley Suamataia, somebody, Hunter Norzad, they need to solve some of the issues. I mean, frankly, one of them probably needs to end up being a right tackle. One of them needs to be the left guard, and they need to find Jalen Moore needs to work out, or Moore go over to right tackle. I mean, whatever. Those guys have got to start filling some spots because they're starting to be, I think, thin in other spots because they haven't been able to address them, right?
And you also have to make a blockbuster trade if you can't do that, right? That's what the Tyreek Hill trade did for this team a few years ago, and that's. The Eagles obviously are the team that you can look at and say, how are they doing this? And they have, I think what separates the Chiefs and the Eagles right now is the Eagles had backups ready to go. And when you look at the Chiefs roster, they don't have those kind of players in those positions where you say behind the starters, okay, this guy moves out, this guy is moving in. They've operated in a different way. Maybe they've missed more, but that's a big factor in how they're going to move forward.
All right,
well, I was just gonna say real quick, that to me is the effect of what Soren said, which is the cause. Like the Eagles weren't great for a couple of years, and because of that, they've had the luxury of picking Devontae Smith at 10, Jordan Davis at 13, Jalen Carter at 9. A year they had 2 first-round picks. I mean, Quinion Mitchell, I guess, was 22. But, I mean, the Chiefs had to trade up to get Trent McDuffie at 21. Like, 22 and 21 is much different than 31 and 32, as the Chiefs have found out.
Yeah, and because I think 21 and 22, you're still on the brink of those guys that are really first-round picks. And I think when you get down to 31, 32, Felix Anudike-Uzomah, you're going like this. And by the way, I'm crossing my fingers and hoping, right? That's what you're doing if you're sitting at that spot because, George Karlaftis, I think they hit with him as a true first-round caliber player, but Felix Anudike-Uzomah, they didn't. And so that becomes a much more volatile position. All right, let's dive in. You want to start us off, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I guess I won't speak for you guys. It wouldn't surprise me if we're all in the same spot. Tackle is number one. And I think just clearly number one because you need both tackles. Jawaan Taylor, you can save $20 million against the cap after 2025 season. So I think the likelihood, not a certainty, but the likelihood is this is his last year. And therefore, even if you hit on Jalen Moore, first of all, it's only a 2-year deal. But second of all, he can slide to right tackle or a pick can slide to right tackle first and then play left tackle, whatever it is. But number one with a bullet for me is tackle.
Yeah, I think when you look at what their cap allocations are already for 26, right? $307 million. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's the cap maximum. What are they? 291. I'm looking at one of the sites for what their cap is already for that. Like that speaks to that the plan is not for him to be there, right? The plan is for him to be gone, and for him to be gone, somebody has to. Well, you're already looking for left tackle. I'll go next. I got O tackle as well. And I'm assuming Jeff is going to come in at that spot for what you said. They have a pressing need at maybe the second most important position on the field right now at left tackle. They're hoping they've got it filled with Jalen Moore. They're hoping they can at least get Donovan Smith production out of him. But I think for all the other spots to work, I mean, when you converted that roster bonus to make all these moves, Chris Jones went to $45 million next year, right? And so that means it's going to be hard. I don't know how you get there. Somebody's got to go, right? And Jawaan Taylor seems like the guy they're planning on going, and so that makes tackle to me pressing. It's a hugely important position, and they're not good now, and they're screwed after this year. I assume you have tackle at number one as well, Jeff.
Yeah, and for all the same reasons, and really, it's the position that humanized this team this past year. I mean, there were things happening with this offense and with this quarterback that we've never seen happen before because those positions were in such flux. And so you're right. It's not an easy fix. It's Bill Belichick said it, when you're a really good team and you're picking late, it's very hard to fill all your holes, and those are major holes to fill. And they're going to have to be really creative and really aggressive in how they do it, because they were able to get away with Jawaan Taylor because the other side of the line, the Joe Toonies, the Creed Humphreys, Trey Smith were able to make up for that. But if you have two below average tackles with this offense, it's hard to imagine, dynasty ends. Let's put it that way. It's not even going to be a dynasty moving forward. It's just going to be a really good team making the playoffs, but not winning championships. Yeah,
it's a pressing need now and in the future, and I don't know that the answer is there. Right, it may drag them down, and I think that the scary part is, does it drag them down to being 10-7 and in the wall and commercial filler, what I like to call commercial filler in the playoffs? That is a team that's good enough to get there, but has no chance of winning it, even with Patrick Mahomes, because you just know they can't beat the elite teams, and because that's the worst spot to be in. You'd almost be better get down and like you said, replenish with a couple of high caliber players like the Eagles did, would almost be better. All right, number 2, Sam, where do you go?
Edge rusher. First of all, it's a premium position. I think they need an edge rusher immediately, and that the need is only going to become more glaring after next year. I mean, George Karlaftis, they've got a 5th-year option on him that's about 15 and change. He's probably going to be worth that, but one of the reasons he's probably going to be worth that is you have nobody else. I mean, first of all, that's almost literally true. Like, FAU will still be on the roster. You can save $9 million by cutting Mike Dana after this next year. Like, every team in the league could use an extra edge rusher. Like, nobody's going to pass on an extra edge rusher. But the Chiefs, in this draft, I think, you take a first-round edge rusher, nobody should be complaining about that, because when you look at this roster, it's pretty glaring that it's now and in the future.
Jeff, where do you go at number 2?
I went running back, and I understand what Sam is saying. The edge rusher is high on my list too, but I just feel like, and this requires a fundamental change in how they want to play offense here. And I know that Patrick Mahomes is an amazing generational talent, but even amazing generational talents need help. And the way this league is going, the way the run game is gone, the way dynamic running backs like Jahmyr Gibbs or Christian McCaffrey or Alvin Kamara, whoever you want to throw in there, Saquon Barkley, the way they impact the game now is so obvious that they got to get on board here. It's not a major investment to make, but I do think it can help their offense be better because they rely so much on Mahomes and so much on receivers who really aren't, A-list receivers. We're talking about Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase type people here, that to add another playmaker out of the backfield could really change this offense. So I'd love to see them this year, or at least in the next couple of years, add a dynamic running back.
Yeah, I mean, running back, Elijah Mitchell, UFA, after this year, UFA. Kareem Hunt, UFA. Isaiah Pacheco, UFA. Keontae Ingram, restricted free agent. And Carson Steele, under contract for $1 million. That's the running back situation right now. I do think it is. And I don't know that you love any of those guys. And Sam said it today on the radio show about what they're looking for. Like, they don't have a third down guy. Do we know that they have someone who can pick up the blitz, catch the ball, do all those things? I think I didn't have it quite as high because I do feel like they can get by, but they better thrive elsewhere if they're going to just get by at running back. I've got number 3 for me.
Well, you've got 2 first, right?
Yeah, two.
I'm sorry. Number 2 for me is defensive tackle. And it's because it's Chris Jones, but my fear is that, first of all, I think Chris Jones is going to need help because he's on the downslope of his career. I think we saw that begin last year. I think if anybody's going to hold up, it's going to be him, because I think he is in great physical condition and he takes the conditioning part of the game really serious. But the other defensive tackle that is under contract for them,
well, they don't have anybody beyond 25. The answer is nobody after 2025.
It is Charles Omenihu, if you want to call him that, because he was inside on a pass rush. And yes, Sam's right. There's nobody who really has DT written next to their name that's there. And I think at least George Karlaftis, who they have the right to give him a 5th year, so they have a right to control him. They do control him if they want to. They got to make that decision coming up this offseason. But they have the right to control him for 26. So I think I think they're going to do that. And Michael Dana and Felix Onyedike are under contract. I don't love that position at all, and it's going to come up very soon for me. But defensive tackle, it's Chris Jones, and that's it. And I think D tackle is becoming, in a lot of ways, the more disruptive. It's in some ways the more disruptive spot. But I think you need to be good across the defensive line. So I had defensive tackle at number 2 on mine. And Sam, you had edge, right? So we've got everybody.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you go at number 3?
So I go to defensive tackle at number 3, and to me, I found myself separating these in tiers as well, to where I thought, to me, it was pretty evident the top 3 were in one tier with offensive tackle, edge, and defensive tackle, and that would drive me in the draft too, to say these are, if it's a tie on my board, these are the 3 positions I need in the first and second round in the draft, picking from this group in the first first couple of rounds. And the reason I went with edge over D tackle is because you do have Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is better than what you have at D end. But the reason it's still 3rd on my list, despite having an all-pro player, is because the Chris Jones contract is going to get interesting. It already has, because of the money that they pushed down. It's going to get more interesting in a couple of years from now, which is after 2026. So after 2 years from now, you can save $19 million by cutting Chris Jones. After another year, you can save $35 million by getting out of the last year of his deal. You don't want those decisions to be made based on having no reinforcements there. You want it to be made just on, is this player at this age based on what we've seen from him recently, based on his injury history that is an unknown over these next couple of years, he keeps himself in shape. I'm not saying that you should expect injury. I'm saying we don't know how that could change over the next couple of years. You want is this player worth it to be the driving force of that decision, and not, well, we've got nobody else. What are we going to do without this guy too? And so that's why it still ranks pretty high on my list.
Okay. I'll jump in here because I'm flip-flopped with the I have edge now at number 3. And the reason I put defensive tackle over edge is I expect George Karlaftis to be healthier than Chris Jones just off youth. And so I agree Chris Jones is the better player, but I also think we're going to start seeing Chris Jones play 12 games, 10 games, 14 games. Like if you told me he's going to play 15 games each of the next 3 years, bank it, right? Bank it right now. Because I think more realistically, I mean, when you look at the careers of guys, he's going to start missing games. And so I think George Karlaftis is still a young player, even for his experience. And so I think that's why I lean. I think he'll be on the field more than Chris Jones will be on the field. That's why I had.
So you think they signed? Do you think they signed George Karlaftis then?
I do. I think they exercised the 5th year and worked during that time to put an extension together. And I think he's the kind of guy. He's the perfect candidate to extend. To me, and I pointed this out last year, Trey Hendrickson's numbers look a lot like his to this point in Trey Hendrickson's career. And he blew up at the end of that first contract. And I think there is a level of experience, learning the techniques and the hand fighting and all the things you got to do to be good at that spot. I don't think he's going to be Trey Hendrickson.
That was my question.
Well, I was very big on Trey Hendrickson was the free agent I wanted the Chiefs to sign. You'll remember we had that, and that was my big guy I wanted to go for back then. And he was really coming off 1 year, 1 double-digit sack year that he got it done. No, I don't think that'll be it. I don't think you can hang your hat on that, but I think he can continue to be an effective player, and we'll get better. And yes, and I think what they'll do is they'll put the 5th-year option on him, and then I think he gets an extension early. I think he is the kind of guy that, if you get on the open market at 8 sacks per, you'll get a pretty good check. I think they'll be willing to give him more than the open market would give him right now, and I think he'll grab it and take the security. So yes, I do. I think they've got him for 2, and I think they'll keep him beyond that. Jeff, number 3 on your list.
That's ambitious. I'm sticking with the edge rusher at 3 because of some of the things you just said. I don't think Karlaftis is going to be part of their future. I think he's going to be super expensive. I think he'd be crazy to just sign any deal the Chiefs give him when the market has gone nuts for edge rushers. And you have to think that guys like Aiden Hutchinson will have gotten new deals by that point. There's going to be a lot of guys who, and maybe he's not the Nick Bonito category. That's a pass rushing linebacker, but it's still an edge player, and he's going to be wanting to get some of that money. But they don't have anybody else, and that's something that Steve Spagnuolo wants to be able to live with is knowing he's got guys who can get to the quarterback. And so I think that they've been very fortunate in what they've been able to get out of the Charles Omenihu's and the Frank Clarks, even the Karlaftis type guys. But I think especially in this draft, they have to get a young guy that they really believe in, who can be a difference maker, who's athletic. Doesn't have to be a stud right away, but they got to start finding guys like that again because the cupboard is pretty bare.
Somebody can win based on speed. I mean,
exactly.
They haven't had guys in a while that can bend around the edge and win with speed.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think that's because it's like offensive tackle. They're not there at 31. Right?
Yeah.
George Karlaftis is that kind of guy. Yeah. And people had him going maybe at 8, 9, 10 in that draft. And then he was on the slide. Okay, he's going to be at 18, 19, 20. And then people in Kansas City were doing cartwheels that they got him at 31 because they'd seen his name up much higher. But we're seeing why, because he doesn't have that natural bend. He's not that just burn a guy off the edge type of guy. He's a guy that's going to have to win with the techniques and the hand fightings. And that's why my comp for him was Tamba Hali. And I think he needs to do some more work to get there because it's going to be techniques that get him there. I think that's a big part of the equation. A big part of the equation when it comes to managing your business is making sure you make a great first and last impression with your clients. That's your parking lot. One company can take care of all that. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, One contractor, all things parking lot.
At Whataburger, the flavor you've been asking for is back. For a limited time, check out the chicken fajita tacos or grab the Monterey Melt with all those same great flavors you've been missing. Also for a limited time, check out the all-new Mexican hot chocolate coffee. Or you can try the Mexican hot chocolate shake. That's right, sweet, rich cocoa, warm Mexican cinnamon, notes of brown sugar, and a light kick of chili, swirled in a creamy blend of vanilla ice cream. And don't forget, you can get all your Whataburger favorites and more by downloading the Whataburger app with the QR code. Whataburger, proud sponsor of the Red, Gold, and Bold.
All right, let's continue. We're up to number 4 on the list, Sam. What's the 4th biggest need for these Kansas City Chiefs?
Yeah, this is more of a look to the future because I think they're in an okay spot this year, but I've got cornerback 4th on the list, and I realize that could be higher than you guys have it, but after this year, you start to run into some problems at cornerback. Trent McDuffie is going to potentially get really expensive. Jalen Watson's a free agent. Joshua Williams is a free agent. The Christian Fulton deal is just 2 years, and you still can't be sure that he's going to fit into your system as you go into this draft. You need some cheaper corners on your roster. And I also am putting this high up on the list because what this organization has done better than perhaps anything outside of Patrick Mahomes is take young cornerbacks and develop them and make them into serviceable number 2 and number 3 cornerbacks. So take advantage of what you do well and, draft deep. I'm not saying 1st, 2nd, 3rd round, but they've made Jalen Watson's a 7th round cornerback. Najee Johnson, I know he has his faults still. He's better than most 7th round production. You got good value out of that. So take advantage of what you do well. And they develop, as long as Dave Merritt and Steve Spagnuolo are there, they develop cornerbacks really well. Okay.
All right. Jeff, number 4 on your list.
I have corner 2. And defensive tackle could be there, but I feel like, I'll talk about defensive tackle in a second. I think more of that's about I don't think you can replace superstars that easily. And so to me, I think it's easier to fill the need at cornerback the next couple of years. For all the same reason Sam just said, you look at they're going to lose a lot of these guys who've been around, like the Jalen Watsons and the Josh Williams and Najee Johnson type guys. I don't know if Christian Fulton is the answer, not just because of the scheme, but he doesn't stay healthy. He's played 57 games in 5 years. And so that's a concern. But the big thing here is you've got to find a way to maximize Trent McDuffie, especially as he becomes more expensive, because having him play on the outside is not where he fits best. He's a slot guy. He's at his best on the inside. And so having a guy or 2 guys you can trust on the outside, I think is paramount to this defense being at its best. I think that people throughout all of last season, underestimated how much of a problem their cornerback spot was, and you saw it play out as they got deeper into the playoffs, and obviously against the Eagles, it was a disaster.
I like the Christian Fulton addition a lot. I think it's great, and we've talked about it. I don't like losing Justin Reed, but basically for swapping the same salaries and getting the corner, I think they're a better football team because I think they've got some other possibilities at safety, and safety was a spot I thought about here as well because I think they're pretty thin at safety as well. Yeah. But I went corner, and just like you guys did. And I think the other reason
I said I thought I had him higher than you guys would. You guys both have him in the same spot.
I have the same spot. And one, it's a position. It's a premium position.
Yes.
And you play with at least 3 and a lot of times 4. And I think they tend to get hurt a lot, right? And so I think for all those reasons, you want depth of corner. I think one of the underrated things about the Chiefs' success story is the depth of corner that they've had. To your point, Sam, about the guys playing the 7th round, they don't have anybody who's just an absolute abstract disaster. And I've covered Chiefs teams that get to their 3rd and certainly their 4th corner that are just absolutely that's the guy they're going at because he can't cover anybody. And so I think that's an important part. But I also think the Trent McDuffie, I believe that they will put the 5th-year option on him because it's only $13 million. Why wouldn't you? But I think it is a really tricky situation because he's a 2-time All-Pro but no Pro Bowls, which is what drags his number down to 13, which is going to piss him off royally. And so I think you want to get in there and get him done quickly to give him some money to kind of alleviate that frustration that he's feeling. And it's not the Chiefs' fault that it's his number. But I think he's going to really want the extension. And if he wants to be paid like a true all-pro corner, he's going to be asking for a giant contract. And we mentioned the deal that was handed out by the Carolina Panthers, which I think blows up the cornerback market. I think they want Trent McDuffie. I think it may go to hell in a handbasket. It really depends upon are he and the Chiefs on the same page of what he is and what his value. And so I think it's important to be ready to go in case it doesn't come together, because I don't think it's a lock that they get that done, right? Like you mentioned, Jeff, kind of being a little concerned about whether or not they get Karlaftis done. I think it's a concern that whether or not they get the cornerback spot done, because I think McDuffie's kind of a really unique case in how his contract's going to work. All right, number 5, Sam.
I've got wide receiver. And this is another one where I'm looking more to the future than I am for the immediacy, but I would just draft a wide receiver almost every year. We talked in our last podcast on Tuesday about the market that wide receiver costs you, and I named somebody that really none of the three of us even know who it is going to be making more money than Rashee Rice. Like, the brilliance of the draft is you can draft premium positions and pay them like non-premium positions, like scrubs at non-premium positions. And so I always think you should fill up on the premium positions, especially the one where you could potentially put 4 on the field at one time. And so that's why I've got wide receiver as high, even though I think they're okay, emphasize that word. I think they're okay with where they are right now. But if they draft one this year, they could certainly use one this year. They could really use them in the future.
Jeff, number 5 for you.
I went defensive tackle, but haven't they drafted a receiver pretty much every year?
They have. Xavier Worthy, Rashee Rice, Sky Moore the year before. Those are all, top 2-round picks that they've done 3 straight years. I would just do it. I'm not saying this is a critique of what they haven't done. I would, throw numbers at that position all the time.
I think that's what they've done, and I think it's thank God they did. Right? Where would they be if they didn't? I know they swung and missed on Sky Moore, but they kept firing, and I think that's what you got to do, knowing you're gonna swing and miss on one of those guys at some point. Yeah, I'm with you. I think I'll get to wide receiver pretty quick. I don't have wide receiver here, but I think for the reasons you said, yeah, that's I'm in agreement on that. You have D tackle here, Jeff?
I got D tackle here, and as I was saying about Chris Jones, I think the danger with this exercise is thinking you're going to find another Chris Jones. And trying to moving forward, trying to figure out when does he begin to really fade away and what do you do in that spot. I think they're probably more likely going to have to play with lesser players in that spot and focus more on edge talent, because I think it's just hard to find guys like Chris Jones or Jalen Carter or Zach Allen, whoever it is. I think those guys are not as in abundance as edge rushers are. And so but they have to find them, like we said, like losing Tershawn Wharton is significant. Finding players like that would be helpful, but they've been sitting around with Derek Nottie for the last few years, and you can't have that either. And so I think you have to find ways to fill out that spot the next couple of years.
I'm going to go safety because of how thin they're going to be. Chamari Connor, I'm planning on making the move over to safety, but Brian Cook is a free agent after this year. Jaden Hicks is a guy that had a promising rookie year, but we're not sure what he is. And they clearly think it's important to have a quarterback on defense at that spot. And is Jaden Hicks going to be that guy? They've gone from Tyrann Mathieu to Justin Reed and always kind of had a Swiss Army knife type safety that you can really rely on. And I don't know that they've got that right now. So I think that we may look back on it. I know I said I like the money exchange, Fulton for Justin Reed, but I can also see a scenario where we're 6 weeks into this year and I'm going, yeah, I read that wrong. There's a reason why they've given $10 million a year to a safety, and now they don't have one of those types of guys, and they really miss it. I may be reading this wrong, but I do think that they've got to get a safety, although I'm optimistic that Chamari Connor could move over to safety and play well and alleviate the need for that a little bit. But I think their D backfield, because it's going to be hard to find these defensive linemen and find true difference makers. They can get better at it, but I think their coverage is going to have to stay rock solid. And so I put safety in at number 5. Number 6, Sam.
Yeah, this is the bottom of my second tier, so to speak, which is running back. Jeff had it higher than I did. If I was grading positions purely on like where I felt like their room was compared to league average, running back might be first on your list in this situation. But just as far as the ability to find one and spend less, whether it's finances or whether it's draft capital on it. Last year, they plucked a guy off the couch in September. They plucked a third down running back after cut down day. Like, you can find serviceable players in means that does not require you to go in to a draft and say, this is a major, major glaring need. Having said that, it's a really strong running back class, and I think they should take one in this draft. They just shouldn't feel like they should have to take one in the first, second, or even third round of it.
Jeff, number 6 for you?
Safety. And I'm with you. I think Brian Cook hasn't worked out. And no one talks about it because they've had other guys in their defense rise up, but ultimately he has not become the player that I think a lot of people hoped he would become. And I don't think he's going to be back. I'm positive he won't be back once his contract runs out. And Shamari Conner took a step back. Maybe that's because he was playing in a spot that he wasn't comfortable. But I can't overlook the fact that the two best safeties they've had on this team in the last 5-6 years have been guys from the outside. And they really haven't, as they've done a good job at corner, they haven't done great with developing safeties. And I think even Juan Thornhill was hit and miss up until the end of his run here.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm not – they've got to find people that they really trust. Jaden Hicks is promising, but he's young. And if you got one guy back there you can say that about, that's just not enough for me.
I'll go a step further. Juan Thornhill, they blossomed as a secondary after he left.
Yeah.
That's when the secondary really took off. I'm with you. Number 6 for me is wide receiver. And I keep pushing running back down just because of the position. I'll talk about that a little bit more. But I'm with Sam. I think you got to take one almost every year because, when you do hit, they're going to be super expensive. And so I don't know how often this team is going to be able to keep any of its super expensive guys. But I also think it's important to get the offense up and going. And so it's not higher. Like, I wouldn't mind if they took a wide receiver in the first round again, because I think it's important, 1, to keep your quarterback happy, but 2, to score points and be able to score points in whatever amount of time you need to do at the end of a half in a game. And I think you do that with wide receivers. They still need more at wide receiver. And I kind of like Sam's, putting it into the tiers. When I go wide receiver here at number 6, it's not much further behind cornerback. It's not that much further behind edge. For me, like it's up there, and you could put corner, safety, and wide receiver all together for me as far as I'm concerned. If you are looking to make sure your parking lot is protected, our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete got you covered. And of course, we're always brought to you by our friends at Key Cannabis. Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit one of their 14 key locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest bud tenders. At Key Cannabis, you'll find award-winning cannabis, convenient online ordering with drive-through pickup and a loyalty program, plus so much more. Visit their Kansas City area locations in KC North, South Kansas City, and Belton. Open 7 days a week. And mention my name, Soren Petro, to your bud tender for 20% off your purchase. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's pick up at number 7, Sam. 7th biggest need. Where?
Yeah, I am persuaded by your guys' argument for safety. I think they're good arguments. My original list, I had tight end as 7th. I mean, I think this is likely Travis Kelce's last year. I think Noah Gray's a really solid number 2. But, if you're going to be a Patrick Mahomes-led offense, like, your tight end needs to be involved in the passing game as well. And I don't know who that's going to be after Travis Kelce leaves. So I've got tight end as 7th.
All right. Jeff?
I've got receiver at 7. Again, going back to the Chris Jones theory at defensive tackle, I think the idea of replacing a player like Travis Kelce is going to be fool's gold. and they're going to be better off trying to assemble more receivers. Now, the key here is trying to be more diversified in what you look for, not to be so obsessed just with speed, getting different body types, not having it be so niche driven, but more so production driven. But I think that this offense, I'd love to see it 3-4 years down the road be more about the receivers and less about the tight end position. So we don't know where Rasheed Rice is going to be on this team in a couple of years. We don't know the ceiling for Xavier Worthy, and everybody else who's in the mix is not going to be here. And so I think they definitely need to start adding more bodies to that room.
I can go 7-8 here if you want to turn the corner, because I go running back and then tight end. And the reason I've got running back down as low as I do, you guys got to hire, is just I do think it's a position that you can get by. I think they got by last year. I think you can get by, and they proved it with almost anyone. They had an undrafted free agent, a guy off the couch in September, and they won 15 games. So, or was it 14?
15.
15. They won 15 games. And so I think you can, you want more. And I think if you get the opportunity and there's a running back that you think, and Sam and I were talking about this today, that can hit you the home run, I got no problem with you taking him. I got a problem with you taking him in the first round. But if in the third round you get a guy, that's where Kareem Hunt came, I'm all for it. But I got running back over tight end because I do think Noah Gray is a pretty good answer. And I'll give credit to Scott Bushka, who's on the radio show on 810 with me. And he said, he talked about Noah Gray, that Noah Gray's numbers as far as per catch in the air distance is good. His run after catch numbers are good. I think Noah Gray, probably should be featured a little bit more. I think he's a better athlete. And I know this might bring a tear to the eye of one year.
I think Sam is sitting there bristling. He's Noah Gray hater.
Yeah, well, look, I like Noah Gray.
I don't think he's going to be Travis Kelce in his prime. I just think he's a serviceable tight end, and I don't know that you have a serviceable running back after this year. Noah Gray's signed beyond this year. No one in the running back spot is.
Yeah. I get that. Look, in the playoffs, in 3 games, he had 4 catches for 15 yards. 15 yards in 3 games in the playoffs. I won't count the Denver game in the season finale because he did play and caught 1 catch for 1 yard. But his last 3 regular season games, he combines for 4 catches.
I know,
for 37 yards. So you've got 6 his last 6 games of the year where he has 52 yards in his last 6 full games of the year. We're 5 years into Noah Gray. Why do we think there's another level? He's a very solid player for him. There's a reason they gave him an extension, but expecting another level out of that, I think is ambitious.
You don't think that if Travis Kelce, do you think he's going to put up the same numbers that he's putting up right now when Travis Kelce leaves?
No, but even that per play basis, he averaged 10.9 yards a catch last year. Is that good?
For tight ends, I think it is.
Huh.
And I think there was a lot of run after catch on that, which does he get more routes downfield? I think Noah Gray, when they throw him the football, looks pretty good. They don't throw him the ball that often.
I'm with you on that one. I think it's more about opportunity than it is about talent with him.
I think he's got a very good catch radius. I don't know that I'd expect him to get open a ton.
I expect him to be able to find holes in the zone the way Kelce did. Is he going to be Travis Kelce in his prime? No. But if he were the starting tight end this year, would I expect him to go for 806? Yes. That's a serviceable tight end. If the goal is to recreate a 1,410 guy, good luck. There's been about 4 in the entire history of the league, right? I think we have to make sure that we don't grade Noah Gray based upon what Travis Kelce has been. And you grade him on what the tight end position is.
Yeah, I think it'd be who was that guy in Buffalo? Not Kincaid, the other guy. Dawson Knox. He could be that kind of tight end, I think, at his best.
Yeah. I think he could be who was the Cam, the Bucks tight end with Brady that wasn't Gronk. I think he wore 44 and he came from an Ivy League school.
I know you're talking about.
Yeah,
I don't think he wore 44. I think he was 88 or something.
88. 88, right?
It was 88. I can't remember his name, but he was 88.
I'm going to look it up. Was it Cameron Brate?
Cameron Brate. I don't know if I get that excited about Cameron Brate. I would say on that one. If he's Cameron Brate, probably needs to look for more tight ends.
Yeah, aim higher. You're telling me is that?
Yeah, I think Cameron Brate's number is probably about worse than what Noah Gray's put together so
Let me
far.
see. Let me look and see if I'm remembering correctly on Cameron Brate. 590. His third year, 660 and 8 on 57 catches. 48 for 591 and 6. That's the Cameron Brate that I'm thinking of.
Okay, that ain't 806.
No, it's not. You're right. Aim higher. Aim higher. I agree. All right, number 8 for you, Sam.
I've got safety, and so I'll keep it short. I like I said, I thought you guys made a persuasive argument on it, to where I might, flip flop that with tight end. But they do have 2 younger players there, so I don't think it's like a huge glaring need. But Soren, you're right. Like, they do like that position to have a leadership quality, and perhaps I think that Trent McDuffie can take that over in the secondary room. He does, provide a great work ethic. He is a good leader, but it's just, during the Super Bowl era, it's come from a safety, and I don't think that's by accident. I think that's been by design.
All right, number 8 for you, Jeff.
Tight end. That was your 8 too, right?
My 8 was tight end. Jeff, I had you at 7 for tight end.
I switched it up. Yeah, I switched it up. I went wide receiver.
Oh, wide receiver
at
7.
7.
Okay, tight end 8. Okay,
Yeah,
all right,
tight end 8. Yeah.
right.
But yeah, it's a lot of the same reasons. I'm not completely sold on Noah Gray, but I'm less sold on, was it Jared Wiley, the guys behind him? Yeah. And so I haven't seen anything from him. And I just don't think you can replace a Travis Kelce. And the way the league is going, it's harder to find those kinds of difference-making tight ends. You look around the younger guys, once you get past the Brock Bowers and the kid Trey McBride in Carolina, in Arizona, there aren't a lot of guys at that spot who are really tearing it up the way that the Kelce's and the George Kittles did throughout most of their career. So I think it's going to be a lot harder to find those players. And again, if Noah Gray is a serviceable player for you, a decent player for you, I think you're doing well. But I just think for me, it's lower here because I think it's just tougher to fill those spots.
Okay. All right. That takes us to 9, Sam, on your list. And by the way, don't we all have the same bottom 3, right? Means we all have linebacker, interior offensive.
Well, I think 11 is consistent.
I hope it is. Sam?
Yeah, I mean, so tight end and safety to me were in the 3rd tier, and these bottom 3 to me are clearly the 4th tier. To where I won't argue with any of them, but I've got linebacker at number 9. I mean, you're for sure paying Nick Bolton for 2 years, possibly 3. If you want him, you've got Drew Tranquill next year. I think it saves $6 million to cut him next year, so we'll see about that. Leo Chenal is entering the last year of his rookie deal, so you'll need somebody, but they spent plenty on linebacker already.
How about the number? If you look at the number too on where it goes for Nick Bolton, $6.5 million this year, 19 and a quarter. The cap hits for him at that middle linebacker spot. Love the player, don't love that number. That's for sure. I will just tell you, I've got linebacker at number 9 as well. They've got. I like Nick Bolton. It's too much money for him.
That third year, just add on what you said, Soren. They can get out of that with $15 million, with only $4 million in dead cap money, which is why I said you've got him for sure for 2. We'll see about the 3rd.
But I don't like Leo Chenal. Are you going to pop for Leo Chenal as well? I love all the intangibles he brings, but he's not really their ideal fit for an every down linebacker. And so he's a great specialty piece, but man, they are going to have to be shopping for it. But it's down on the list. It's number 9 for me. Jeff?
Yeah, same boat, linebacker. And I think if you'd asked us a year ago at this time, would the Chiefs be this invested in their linebacker core, we'd be laughing about it. We'd say there's no way it's possible you have 2 guys on second contracts here. And so again, like, we all like the players, but it does tell you some of the challenges they have moving forward because they have that kind of investment in those spots. All these other spots that are way higher are a lot harder to fill because of that money going to those guys. So you hope it works out, but there aren't many teams out there that are linebacker centric, and the Chiefs probably shouldn't be one of them.
Okay.
Everything Jeff just said, apply it to interior offensive line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
That's number 10 for you?
Yes, about the resources they have involved, about kind of the little bit of a sticker shock for those of us on the outside about the how much resources they put into it. They've spent plenty at interior offensive line as well.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that is, I don't know, like if it were possible to be lower than quarterback on a team that has Patrick Mahomes,
It would be this position. Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
let me ask you guys this, because this might be a more interesting exercise on the interior offensive line. If they did not bring Trey Smith back, where would you have interior offensive line? I still wouldn't have it in my top 5. I don't think I'd have it in those first. That's why I separated it by tiers. Is because I thought I wouldn't put it in those first 2 tiers. You know, with the bottom of every one on top of my list is premium position 1 through 5. Yeah. Then I've got running back for the reasons that Jeff mentioned 6th. I think 1 through 6 stays the same, even if they don't have Trey Smith coming back.
Yeah, I'm with you, because number one, some of these tackles you've taken, so a couple of the interior, they better be able to fill those holes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not up there because you have to, whether they're good or not, live with what you have done. And I really thought that's what they'd be doing with Trey Smith. Like, it wouldn't have shocked me if they hadn't kept Trey Smith and they had traded Joe Thuney. It said Creed Humphrey was where we were going to spend our money, and he makes each guy to the side of him better. But we're going to start hoarding resources to fix that tackle spot. And in the meantime, Wanya Morris, Kingsley Suamataia, Hunter Norzad, C.J. Hansen, it's a 4-man fight for 2 spots, and 2 of you guys better step up.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, even if they don't, like, Patrick Mahomes has survived with bad interior alignment because he can see it. He can see when a guy gets beat. It's when he can't see it, you know, at left tackle, that is what really bothers him. And he's not unique in that situation for a quarterback.
Well, and the flip side of it is just, if you're going to invest that much money in it, which is why running back was so high for me, I think you have to have better players in the backfield running the football to take advantage of that. If you have, I mean, you can argue that their run game should have been even better with that group they had last year.
Oh, for sure.
I will argue that. I will argue it.
I won't argue. I will state it as an indisputable fact. Yes, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think also, like, I'm not sure, you know, at some point, I do think teams are getting better and you're not getting difference makers out there. But if they didn't, you know, I'm just trying to think, if you didn't have the money tied up in what would you have spent it on if you weren't tied up in Trey Smith? Right. And
so I think that was the argument that the Chiefs thought, is this wasn't a great free agency class, but I think, I might have answered it this way before, but I would have spent it on Chris Jones. Like, I would not have kicked the Chris Jones can down to a year from now, to where now next year, and people think this cap is going to exponentially rise over the next couple of years. For a team that pays its quarterback what it pays, like, you might have been in an okay salary cap spot. And we haven't said that since Patrick Mahomes aged out of his rookie contract.
Well, and Chris Jones is going to cost as much as some quality quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. At $45 million, his cap hit is going to be up there. I think the question becomes, have they perfected the art of who to keep around the league? And there just isn't going to be high caliber players out there.
That's definitely their thinking, Soren, is they're thinking, it's hard for us to get good players when we draft so late in the draft. Let's keep the ones we do have. Like, that's definitely their mindset. Yeah. That's what drove these decisions in the offseason.
When we see how thin they are, it's what tells me they've got to get more draft picks. Whatever it takes. Like, and if that's at the end of this year, you know, we talked a little bit, you and I, Sam, on the radio show, but if Rashee Rice comes back and has a big year in like 10 games and he plays 12 games, let's say he's suspended 5 games, or he's suspended 4 and he plays 12, and he goes for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns in that time, and you can flip him for a couple of picks, you know, like, because he's younger than DK Metcalf and maybe he's, you know, cheaper or what have you, then they've got to start getting in a spot where they are moving talented players to get more draft picks and throw more numbers at these positions. Because I do think it's going to catch up to them. I mean, they are still living off.
Oh, it is catching up. It's already caught up to them.
I mean, how many guys on the expensive side? There's still Chris Jones, and Brett Veach inherited Patrick Mahomes. He was a big part of the equation to get it done, but he inherited him. It's those are their most important guy on each side of the ball are guys that when Chris Jones goes, who's the difference maker on defense?
Well,
to
Jeff's point about it already catching up to them, like that's certainly one of the takeaways from this exercise is other than the last three positions, which we all have the same, like they could use all those positions.
Yes.
And this is the first year that I participated in this exercise. I don't think you guys did this exact exercise last year. I don't know that we would have said that would be the case for 8 positions. I think most teams in the league have at least 8 positions on that list. There might be a few exceptions to that, but this team's been so solid for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't know how frequently the Chiefs have had 8 positions on this list, but we all have the same 8. And when you look back over those 8, you're not saying no to any of those positions. Like if they draft any of those top 8 positions, you're not saying they don't need this spot. Like what are they doing here?
Yeah, no, you can see the reason why they did it. And I will point out that I know they had the great draft in 22 where they had lots of picks, but Nick Bolton, Creed Humphrey, Josh Kano didn't end up being any good. Noah Gray has been a contributor. Those were picks 2 in rounds 2, 2, and 5. And I cannot stress enough, this seems like a good year to be trading down. throwing picks, especially when I see all these needs. Seems like a really good year to be trading down. I think that could serve them well, for sure. Listen, you can serve us well by supporting our great sponsors here at the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Of course, our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Our friends at Whataburger, for a limited time, check out that chicken fajita tacos. It is out of this world. It's my absolute favorite. Or grab the Monterey Melt. Remember, they're open 24 hours and serving breakfast, 11 p to 11 a at Whataburger, and by our friends at Key Cannabis. Mention my name, Soren Petro, to your bud tender. Save 20% off your purchase. That's right. Key Cannabis will save you 20% off your purchase when you mention my name, Soren Petro, to your bud tender. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, my name is Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here